Imagine it's 1873 on the windswept Osage Trail in southeast Kansas. Travelers, farmers, families followed their dreams toward land, hope, the promise of a new start under the Homestead Act. But what if their trusted refuge turned into a trap? Have you ever paused in what seemed like a safe place and felt deep down that something was off? What makes that moment linger in your mind? Meet John Bender Sr., his wife Elvira, their son John Jr., and daughter Kate. 4 people running a modest stop for weary travelers, a general store, a place to rest, a warm meal. To many, especially a spiritualist like Kate, it seemed a blessing. Softly, almost conspiratorial. But between 1871 and 1873, at least 8 lives, perhaps more, ended there, buried in the orchard, bodies stripped and hidden. The earliest of what some call America's first documented serial killings. What drove the Benders from harmless host to deadly predators? Was it desperate robbery turned something darker, to escape justice, or because they came to relish the act? We may never know. They vanished by the time Sheriff Colonel Alexander York, angry and desperate, investigated the disappearance of his brother, Dr. William York. By then, the Benders and their crimes lay exposed, but the family had already fled into the dust, leaving questions that echo even now. Over a century later, university students from KU, led by Dr. Lauren Norman, dig across the same ground, unearthing shards of pottery, wagon parts, bits of a story buried in soil. Bob Miller, who now owns the land, hopes these pieces will finally help us understand. What did they hide? And where did the Benders go? So here's what I want to ask you right now. Who do you think the Benders were before the murders started? Were they pioneers pushed to the edge, or was something else entirely? Could they have disappeared in a legend, or in a plain sight? Your theories matter, and by the end of this video, I'll read the most compelling ones and weigh them with you. Because this isn't just their story, it's ours, telling us how close safety and danger can stand, and how easily truth can slip through history's cracks. So now that we're here, walking these dusty, imagined trails with the Bender family, isn't it natural to wonder, what were they like before the murders began? What broke the people who seemed so ordinary into something we still can't name? The Benders, John Sr., Elvira, sometimes called Ma or Kate Sr., their son John Jr., and daughter Kate Jr., weren't outsiders in the telling sense. They homesteaded 160 acres just off the Osage Trail, offering travelers who were hungry and hopeful a chance to rest, maybe even a bit of healing from spiritualist Kate. At least 8 bodies, and possibly as many as 20, would later be discovered hidden in that orchard, buried beneath the soil that welcomed weary souls. So when Colonel Alexander York, a state senator and Civil War veteran, finally arrived looking for his brother, Dr. William York, what he found shattered more than just the Benders' facade. A trapdoor, a foul odor, a cellar lined with victims, and then silence because the family had vanished. Has there ever been a story that haunted you because the ending was missing? A book, a movie, an unsolved riddle you kept turning over in your mind? That's exactly what the Benders left us. Now, over 150 years later, this same land is being studied. Landowner Bob Miller purchased the site that once held the Bender cabin. He sold the idea to historians and archaeologists. Let's dig, let's learn, and maybe, just maybe, find the pieces to close this chapter. University of Kansas professor Lauren Norman is leading a field school here. Students are digging slowly and painstakingly. Just recently, they uncovered a well, one of the only visible structures in that sweep of farmland, and a large piece of ceramic, fragments of a life once present. Think about it. Students, not seasoned pros, are peeling back layers of soil that may hold the truth. A square nail, a rivet. Who did it belong to? A traveler who never returned, or the Benders themselves? To anyone who's ever wondered, what happened to them? You're not just watching. You're part of that question, and your answer might be as valid as any. So here's what I want to ask you now. Was it desperation, greed, or something beyond what we can name that turned a family into killers? And how deeply are we willing to dig into history into ourselves to find out. Keep your thoughts close. Comment with your theory. Later, I'll read the most compelling ones, those that make me pause, question, and think anew, because in this story, closure requires curiosity. The lawmen, neighbors, and even the governor were closing in, but by the time anyone knocked on that rustic cabin door, the Benders had vanished. Was it premeditated escape, or opportunity born from panic? A derelict wagon with starved horses was found near Thayer, its tracks traced to the depot. Reports say all four Benders boarded a train to Humboldt, Kansas. Kansas Reflector. If that was their planned exit, where did they go next? Who helped them? And why no one ever claimed the reward, even the $2,000 offered by Governor Osborne? Over the years, dozens of rumors tried to piece their fate. Theories placed them in Canada, St. Louis, or even hiding in plain sight in Colorado after changing their names. One outlandish story even claimed they fled by hot air balloon. Could they really vanish into the vast American frontier? Or was one of those rumors the truth in disguise? In 1880, two individuals arrested in Nebraska confessed to being the elder Benders, but were released when the public declared them imposters. In 1889, two women arrested in Michigan were accused of being Ma and Kate, but alibis proved otherwise. What desperation would lead someone to claim, or to be mistakenly linked to, the Bender legacy? A Pennsylvania newspaper printed an anonymous letter claiming the Benders had been lynched in 1873. Witnesses said they'd been hanged by vigilantes. Vigilante justice, an execution not recorded by the law. Is that more believable than a clean escape? And who's to say the truth didn't die with a frontier code of silence? Laura Ingalls Wilder even referenced the Benders in her writings. She told how Pa Ingalls joined a vigilante search, concluding they will never be found. Yet historians later cast doubt on the timeline, even questioning whether Wilder's memory aligned with reality. When myth and memory collide, how do we separate history from story? Could the Benders' legend be thicker than their footprints? Historian Max McCoy pointed out that no secret this large, spanning decades, could stay hidden unless covered with determined silence. Which seems more plausible, an elaborate escape with no mistakes, or a cover-up by terrified locals protecting their own? Meanwhile, back on the ground, landowner Bob Miller and KU archaeologist Dr. Laura Norman are digging. Not for bones, but for clues, square nails, pottery shards, even a well that may mark the cabin's footprint. Could an unremarkable rivet hold the key to unraveling a timeless disappearance? What do you think? Will science solve what rumor never could? Share your theory. Escape to freedom, lynch mob justice, or something else entirely. Imagine being in the posse that first saw only empty land and wondering if the next stop was a train station, a violent end, or a life of secrecy. What would you choose to believe? But here's where things shift again. There are whispers, persistent, chilling whispers, that the Benders were more than isolated criminals. Some say they were connected to organized bands, even cult-like gatherings traveling across the frontier. We'll explore the psychological shadows behind their cruelty, unsettling connections to other murderous families, and the moral mirror their story holds for us today. When did ordinary domesticity turn into coordinated murder? A father, mother, daughter, son, hooks in the same web. It's something few modern minds can fathom. Psychologists suggest that familial violence at this scale likely involves complex pathology, coercion, emotional dependency, shared delusions. Were they victims of their own beliefs? Did belief in spiritualism overcome boundaries between mind and morality? Interfamilial influence may have created a toxic echo chamber in which cruelty became normalized. What do you think? Can a family mindscape twist into violence so completely that years later, none question the morality of burying strangers in their backyard? The Benders weren't alone. At least one other American family turned hideaway and into a murder site. The Kelly family, in 1887, near the Oklahoma Panhandle, killed 11 travelers over a few months, then were caught and executed. Both families preyed on isolated pioneers, Both used trust as a weapon. The Benders escaped justice, the Kellys did not. Does history show a pattern or reminder that evil can arise in the most domestic facades? How do we make sense of safety turning into threat? 150 years later, towns across Kansas still debate the Benders, as if their story holds a mirror to our own uncertainties. Bender Days events and published books, like Susan Janusz's Hell's Half-Acre, keep the story alive, blending fact, speculation, and folklore. Without photos or records, their faces blur into silhouettes in the public imagination. When a story is built on rumor, remembrance, and shifting truths, who owns the narrative? Do we inherit it or choose from it? If myths faded, if memory fails, perhaps soil might speak truths the mind can't. Archaeologists, students under Dr. Lauren Norman, dig not just for artifacts, but for closure. Artifactual findings, square nails, ceramic shards, remnants, connect us tangibly to the past. Each dig is a prayer for quiet answers in dusty silence. Would you want to lay that past to rest, or keep hunting until every clue surfaces? True crime today can feel sensational, but stories like the Benders remind us that danger can hide behind hospitality. It's a lesson as old as community itself, to balance trust with caution. The Bender case surfaces questions about rural isolation, criminal anonymity, and how communities construct legends out of trauma. Echoes in modern crime, familial conspiracies, hidden violence, and the fragile trust between strangers and hosts. If you were a traveler, would you stop at a cabin where no one spoke out? If you were a neighbor, would you turn a blind eye? What responsibility do we hold for ourselves, for our communities, to see behind facades? This story, that began with 4 homesteaders and a few vanished travelers, still holds power. It reminds us, safety is fragile, memory is malleable, and history is unfinished until we question it. Which theory resonates most? A calculated escape, frontier justice, or familial pathology? Share your thoughts, and I'll feature the most compelling in the next video. If today's story unsettled or intrigued you, subscribe for more deep dives into mysteries that history almost forgot. More than a century has passed since the Bender family vanished into the wind, leaving behind an orchard of graves, a bloodstained cabin, and questions that have never truly been answered. The cabin itself was dismantled long ago, its pieces scattered by curious relic hunters and horrified locals. Today, nothing remains but a field and a marker, a silent witness to one of the most chilling chapters in American frontier history. After the discovery of the murders, the town of Cherryvale and surrounding counties were forever changed. Newspapers sensationalized the case, turning the Benders into ghostly legends, phantoms of the prairie. For decades, travelers passed through, whispering about the family that killed their guests and served them supper, all while pretending to offer kindness. The Benders became America's first widely known family of serial killers, long before the term even existed. Have you ever traveled down a lonely road and wondered about the secrets that place holds? Could an ordinary family you meet on the road today be hiding something terrible? In the years that followed, countless leads emerged. Vigilante posses claimed to have tracked them down and delivered their own form of justice. 2 women were arrested in Michigan in 1889, believed to be Ma and Kate Bender, but due to poor evidence, they were released. Others swore the Benders had fled to Texas, to the Dakotas, even to Canada. But no official arrest, no confirmed execution, no true closure ever came. Do you believe the Benders were ever caught, or did they escape under new names, living out their lives as if nothing had happened? Some historians believe the Benders were murdered by their own neighbors, who kept the truth quiet to avoid scrutiny of their lawless justice. Others suggest they split up. John and Kate, the younger pair, said to have fled together while the elder Benders vanished into obscurity. To this day, there is no death certificate, no grave, and no confession. A modern-day tourist taking a photo of the historic marker with a smartphone. A museum exhibit in the corner featuring bloody Bender artifacts. The story of the Bender family forces us to ask, How does a family turn into predators? How do human beings share meals with strangers one moment and bury them the next? Perhaps we'll never know the full truth, but the ghosts of their victims still whisper across the Kansas prairie. What do you think truly happened to the Bloody Benders? Were they hunted down by vengeful neighbors? Did they slip into the fabric of history under new names? Or do their descendants still walk among us today? Share your theory below. Your insight could shape the conversation in our next investigation. If this story fascinated you, consider subscribing for more haunting mysteries from the past. Your curiosity keeps these forgotten stories alive. As the years rolled on, the story of the Bloody Benders faded from newspaper headlines, but it never truly left the American psyche. Their name became folklore, their crimes a campfire tale, and their victims, often nameless travelers, faded into the dust of history. At least a dozen lives were confirmed lost at the Bender Inn, and some historians believe the number may be far higher. Each was a soul searching for a new life, a safe place to rest, or simply passing through. They became silent witnesses to a crime that forever scarred the Kansas frontier. Do you think we remember enough about the victims of these historical crimes? Or do the murderers often steal their legacy? To this day, experts and amateur detectives alike puzzle over how a family could operate as a collective of killers. Was it greed? Hatred of outsiders? Or something far more complex? A warped family dynamic that normalized death as a means to profit? The Benders left no diaries, no confession, and no final words to explain their madness. The Bloody Benders remind us that evil is not confined to a time or place. It wears the face of hospitality, speaks kindly over supper, and waits for the moment to strike. Their story is a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, even in seemingly ordinary encounters. If you had been traveling in 1873, alone on the Kansas prairie, would you have stopped at the Benders Inn, or kept riding into the night? The Benders were never truly brought to justice, and perhaps that is why their story still holds us captive. Somewhere, in the unmarked pages of history, the truth is written. Until it's found, the prairie keeps its secret. What is your theory? Were the Benders silenced by frontier justice, or did they outsmart everyone and fade into anonymity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We feature the most compelling ones in future videos. If this story has kept you awake tonight, there are many more waiting to be told. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join our community of truth seekers as we uncover the mysteries the world tried to forget.